Everyone today says, train to failure, go beyond failure, destroy the muscle. And if you don't, people would say, oh, you're not training hard enough. But what if the one of the greatest bodybuilders ever actually proved this idea wrong? Because Lee Haney, 8 times Mr. Olympia, one of the greatest physiques on record, did not believe in annihilating the body. He actually warned people by saying, stimulate, do not annihilate. And today, modern science is slowly catching up with what Lee Haney already understood, and something that most people today do not understand. And this is that muscle growth is not about destruction, it's all about productive stimulation. Meanwhile, bodybuilding became obsessed with failure, maximum intensity, surviving workouts instead of building muscle. And much of that shift actually came from one man, and this is Mike Mentzer. So today I want to compare two completely different philosophies, Lee Haney versus Mike Mentzer, because I genuinely believe that one of them understood long-term hypertrophy far better than the other. And I believe that modern fitness industry choose the wrong path. Now, before many of you become emotional and start sending comments about Mike Mentzer, let me tell you this. This is not about disrespect towards Mike Mentzer's achievement in bodybuilding. This is all about the way that he promoted heavy-duty training systems, something that he didn't use, because Mike Mentzer was in the best shape of his life when he trained high volume. Mike Mentzer was intelligent, articulate, and thought-provoking, but being influential does not automatically mean being correct. And when we look at long-term hypertrophy, recovery, injury rates, training sustainability, aesthetics, and longevity, I believe that Lee Haney's philosophy has aged far better. Because Lee Haney understood something that many people don't understand even today, that you do not grow from exhaustion. You grow from productive stimulation followed by recovery. And once fatigue becomes excessive, your performance drops, recovery drops, volume drops, which is very important, and eventually muscles stop growing. And this is exactly where modern bodybuilding started going wrong. So Mike Mentzer promoted brief workouts, extremely high intensity, very low volume, and training to complete muscular failure. The idea was simple. If intensity is high, you supposedly do not need to do much volume. This became known as heavy-duty training, and for many people it sounded logical. Why do 20 sets if you can achieve the same results doing 1 or 2 sets? But here is the problem. The body does not only experience muscular fatigue, it also experiences nervous system fatigue, connective tissue stress and potential damage, as I explained in many videos, systemic fatigue, CNS system, joint stress, and also recovery depletion. And that becomes extremely important for natural bodybuilders. Lee Haney understood this much better. Haney trained with more volume, more control, better exercise execution, less obsession with failure, and far greater emphasis on recovery capacity. He trained hard, actually very hard, but not suicidal, not destructive. And this is why his training philosophy survived the test of time much better. One reason why people love failure training is because it feels productive. So yes, you leave the gym exhausted, you are shaking, you are destroyed, and psychologically people associate suffering with effectiveness. But physiology doesn't work emotionally. The body responds to tension, recruitment, accumulated work, and recoverable stimulus. So the stimulus that you apply to your training session has to be recoverable, not just exhaustion. And this is where many people misunderstand hypertrophy completely. Because once you reach the point that fatigue becomes excessive, the quality of muscular contraction decreases, technique worsens, stability drops, and momentum increases. And I have explained that again in detail in many other videos. So once you become overexhausted, the focus, the concentration, the training technique, execution, all simply breaks down. And even worse, at that point, joints, tendons, connective tissues, and secondary muscles start taking over. So you're not hitting anymore the targeted muscle. You're basically just surviving the next high-intensity sets, but not in the same form and with the same concentration as you did in the beginning of your session. And as I also explained in the previous videos, those failure reps are actually less productive for hypertrophy, and they simply become junk volume. So when people talk about high volume training and call it junk volume, this is totally misleading. They don't understand what they're talking about, because the moment your reps are not effective anymore and your form is not good enough, which happens with failure training, your reps become simply junk volume. Now let us look at Lee Haney's physique. It was balanced, it was round, it was full, it was aesthetic, it was powerful, not just massive. And most importantly, his midsection was very small. And when Lee Haney used to hit double biceps, his abs would simply sink in, something completely opposite to the modern bodybuilding fashion when the abs are extended and sticking out. And also, this was the problem with Mike Mentzer himself. He never had small and tight midsection. So Lee Haney looked simply miles away from all these modern bodybuilders and also Mike Mentzer when it comes to that midsection and abs sinking in every time he would lift his arms. Modern bodybuilding has increasingly become blocky, inflamed, disdained, injury-ridden, and heavily dependent on pharmacology. So if you guys follow bodybuilding in detail, you will never find a bodybuilder, top elite professional bodybuilder, with the abs small and tight as Lee Haney's. So think about this. Why is that? Because Lee Haney didn't use insulin. Lee Haney didn't use growth hormone. This is why he could have chiseled such a beautiful physique as all the other legends from golden era, simply because the amount of steroids that they used was much smaller, much less than modern bodybuilding, and also they didn't use insulin and growth hormone, which are causing everything to grow, all your internal organs, and this is why your whole body becomes simply like a block, is completely out of aesthetics. And also, modern bodybuilding is obsessed with maximum intensity, force reps, negatives, failure, and all-out brutality. And the body can also only tolerate as much systemic stress, and especially if you're a natural bodybuilder. So this modern trend of super high intensity, force reps, negatives, low reps, super heavy weights is simply going to destroy you if you're a natural bodybuilder. So you will benefit much more from the principles that Lee Haney has brought into bodybuilding. So Lee Haney's philosophy allowed for, first of all, consistent training. So you can train like that for the rest of your life. Also better recovery, because he didn't go to failure or beyond failure. He could have recovered much better. Much greater training longevity, obviously, and more accumulated quality work over time. And this is something that simply matters enormously, because hypertrophy is not built on one workout, it's built over years. And this is where I personally disagree with Mike Mentzer's philosophy, because modern research consistently shows that volume is one of the strongest predictors of hypertrophy, not one maximal set. You can also forget about modern research. We don't need it, actually, because just look at golden era legends and what did they do? They did actually completely opposite. And actually, the funniest bit is that Mike Mentzer also did high volume. When he won his Mr. Universe in Acapulco in 1978, he was in the best shape of his life. And he actually trained high volume like everybody else. Eyewitnesses, people who trained with him in the same gym, they saw him and they all confirm about it. Boyer Coe, Franco Colombo, Tom Platz, Johnny Little, everybody saw him training high volume, and they said it publicly. So guys, all you worshippers of heavy duty, I hope you heard me. You have to be aware of that. And that theory that one set is enough, that one brutal, beyond failure set is enough, it simply doesn't hold water, not just scientifically, but also historically and practically, because I tried it myself. I also tried it with some of my clients. And this philosophy simply doesn't work. Either you are natural or you are enhanced. You will be better off doing high volume. All you need to look is just the history of bodybuilding. Arnold, Lee Haney, Frank Zane, Serge Nubret, Sergio Oliva, Tom Platz, they all use significantly more volume than modern high-intensity training philosophy recommends. And apart from achieving iconic bodies, they also avoided constant and devastating injuries. And this is one of the biggest misunderstandings in fitness today. Failure training simply reduces your ability to accumulative productive volume. And as explained, if the volume is the major predictors of muscle growth, then high-intensity training simply destroys volume, destroys the possibility for maximum muscle growth. Because once you annihilate the muscle early, your performance drops, output drops, recovery drops, and subsequent sets becomes lower quality or junk volume. This is why many people training to failure consistently plateau, they feel chronically fatigued. Many of my clients were when they came to me because of training using the same system. More often than not, they develop injuries and stop progressing long term. You can also read the comments in my videos, and you can see how many people have accumulated so many injuries and they stopped growing and they stopped bodybuilding altogether simply because they were training heavy-duty training system. Once they came across my channel and my advice, they changed and they improved dramatically. These are not my words. Read the comments and you can get this firsthand from people who are actually following my advice on high volume training, high protein, medium fat, low carb diet. Lee Haney understood something crucial, and this is that you must leave the gym able to recover and come back more motivational and stronger. I said it so many times. If you're doing super high intensity, heavy duty workout today and you are about to come back tomorrow, you're going to be dead. You're not going to be able to exercise. So this is not the way to go. This is intelligent bodybuilding. It's not emotional bodybuilding, not ego lifting, not survival training. And honestly, many people today, they're not training muscles, they're training exhaustion. And this is a big difference. Even modern research increasingly supports many of these principles. When volume is equated, training to failure provides little or no additional advantage, but dramatically increases fatigue, recovery demands, systemic stress, and risk of injuries. And this is extremely important because hypertrophy is not simply can you destroy the muscle? The real question is how much training can you recover from consistently over the period of time? And this is something that Lee Haney understood decades ago. And this is why I believe that Lee Haney's philosophy is very relevant today, especially for natural lifters, all the trainees, people who focus on longevity, and also people who are taking small or moderate amount of steroids, because his training philosophy will offer much more opportunity for muscle growth, fat loss, and consistency that the modern trend of super high intensity training. Well, I have to say that social media made failure training look heroic, right? People simply want screaming, collapsing, force reps, blood vessels exploding, dramatic intensity because it looks impressive. But what looks impressive is not always physiologically optimal. And the truth is that many of the greatest physiques in history of bodybuilding were built through consistency, intelligent training, controlled execution, and recoverable training, not through consistently destroying the body. And honestly, many modern influencers are simply confusing fatigue with stimulus. And these two are not the same thing. Well, let me tell you that I have personally experienced all this over years. The more obsessed I become, especially in the beginning, with maximum intensity, constant failure, heavier and heavier weights, the worse my recovery become. I remember my first couple of years of training, when I was training heavy duty, I would be sitting in the cinema and I was in agony. My body was aching, my joints were sore, I kept moving in the seat, I could not find a position to relax myself, but I kept doing it. I kept going session after session, super high intensity, force reps, negative, super heavy weights. And I suffered because of that. I also had a lot of injuries in the beginning. But when I shifted towards better execution, controlled tension, intelligent volume, and less obsession with annihilation, my body simply improved. I got rid of joint aches, injuries, my lower back was very strong, very healthy, I didn't have problems, my knees were finally simply free of injuries, and my recovery completely changed. So I finally started growing. And most importantly, my training became more sustainable long term. And this is critical because once I changed and started training with higher volume, better execution, less rest between the sets, higher number of reps, better recovery, I started improving dramatically. So I started competing, and not just competing, but I started winning shows. And ever since, I've never changed my attitude towards high volume training. Not only did that work for me, but also work for thousands of clients that I have coached in the last 40 years. Because bodybuilding should be build a body, not destroy the body. So after 40 years in bodybuilding, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, and coaching over 3,500 clients and helping them to get in the best shape of their lives, I have published for you 12 ebooks which are fully loaded with detailed information about everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you want to deepen your knowledge, expand your horizons, and finally start growing your body, simply click on that link in the comments and you can download my ebooks. Also, I have published for you Bodybuilding Blueprint course, which is made of 8 videos in which I personally perform and describe most effective exercises for all major muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to train in perfect form, avoid injuries, and stop wasting time in the gym, click on the link in the comments and you can access my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments. And until the next video, I wish you all the best.